Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland and here I am at Old Sarum in Wiltshire, United Kingdom. So I'm just outside the city of Salisbury. So Old Sarum dates back about 5,000 years. In the Iron Age, the ancient Britons built a hill fort here, so just mounds of earth. They weren't very good at building things, hardly any stonework. But later on, the ancient Romans defeated them, conquered it. They built a Roman fort close to here because there was a road between here and Dorchester, not far away. So to command that, and as you'll see, it's got a fantastic vista of all the countryside all around these rolling hills. And then the Normans came along. Well, the Anglo-Saxons came first, then the Normans, and William the Conqueror had a castle built near here, a sort of Motte and Bailey castle. And then in 1075, Salisbury Cathedral was built here. Well, I should say Old Sarum Cathedral. You can't see it from this angle. I might show it to you a bit later. But that suffered serious damage in a storm at 1120. A new one was built by Roger of Caen on the same site. And eventually, the cathedral was shifted about 2 miles away because there's no spring here, there's no river that close. So it was obviously an awful pain in the neck to go and have to get water and bring it back. And because it was within the castle walls, it was difficult to get access to the cathedral because the soldiers worried that worshippers might actually be about to attack. And maybe you can see in the background, can you make out the spire of Salisbury Cathedral? The highest thing for miles around, just there. It's very easy to see with the naked eye, but I appreciate looking at the screen, it's not so easy to see. And then there's a very steep moat, sorry, it's a moat I should say rather, you can see down there. So I didn't want to stand here filming for fear I'd take one step too far back and fall into it. So this is what it's like, and you can see the ruins of it. Anyway, so Old Sarum, it was a parliamentary constituency. That was the Parliament of England started meeting regularly in 65. There had been a Witnagemot, as in a wise meeting of the Anglo-Saxons, but they didn't have elections. Anyway, from 1265, there'd be 2 burghers from each borough, a burgher not being the one that you eat, but as in like a leading citizen, related to the surname Burgess or Bourgeois, and 2 knights from each shire, shire being another word for a county. So the medieval legislation say the best men shall choose from amongst themselves. Well, who are the best men? And that was those who owned substantial property. How much property? Of what value? And so that varied from one constituency to the next. There was no statute about that one. But anyway, Old Sarum, being a borough, had the right to elect 2 burghers who went to Parliament wherever the king chose them to meet, usually London, sometimes Oxford, sometimes other places. And that was going on well after this place was completely abandoned, because in the 13th century that cathedral was demolished and the new cathedral was built 2 miles further south, which I showed you earlier today. And then nobody was living here by the early 19th century, and it was a rotten borough, as in a borough which had parliamentary representation, even though there was a minuscule population, in this case no population whatsoever. And people had to vote, come here, polls were open for 2 weeks when there's an election, a fortnight in which to come here and vote, and it was written down, you had to declare it, your name, your address, your occupation and so forth. So it was a fantastic source for historians. There's no secret ballot until the late 19th century. And so they would process out here and take part in that charade, even though nobody lived here. That sort of pocket borough is, or a rotten borough. Pocket borough totally in the pocket of one family, completely controlled by them, even if lots of people live there, because one family owns so much property there, they can evict people or sack people or whatever for voting the wrong way. Whereas rotten borough, I suppose, is a bit different, as in nobody lives there. And Old Sarum, an example, where literally nobody lived there. There are other boroughs where people did live there, the population was just minuscule. So the Pitt family controlled it for a long time, as in Pitt the elder represented this constituency. Pitt the younger didn't, I believe. Nevertheless, his family did. Obviously, Pitt the younger, his elder brother, was the Earl of Chatham, like the father before him, so he inherited most of the property. Anyway, you can see what was quarried from the nearby stone, and the very well preserved foundations of the castle. There was a dungeon underneath. The keep is the main building. Obviously, dungeons from the French donjon, keep, which is the principal building of one of these castles. So built for military purposes, and only one way in. So strictly guarded over that very steep moat. And the moat would have been a lot deeper in the old days, because of course every time it rained, it's washed a bit of mud in there, and obviously plants have grown and things like that. So what else would I say? So it was excavated a lot about 1911, including by German archaeologists, and they found a lot more of the foundations. And on the other side of the wall, you can't see it from here, there's the remains of the old Sarum Cathedral. You might have read that marvellous historical novel by Edward Rutherford, came out in about 1987, which relates the history of this town of Old Sarum. Yes, I said those near to a Roman road. Now, if you look behind me in a minute, you might see a bit of road. Probably not so clear with the naked eye, but it's dead straight. The Romans built them because the legionaries hated constructing roads, so they built them as straight as possible. Even though there was a steep hill in the middle, they would just go right over that hill. These days we'd build it around the bottom of the hill, but nope, the Roman soldiers were not going to build it an inch further than they absolutely had to. So no climbing because it's very steep. Anyway, perhaps you can see what I'm talking about, that it commands a fantastic view of the countryside all the way around, so very good for observation. That's what I'm talking about this steep moat. Anyway, in the Second World War, the Luftwaffe found that Salisbury Cathedral spire, because it's the tallest thing for many miles in any direction, was an excellent navigational point. So they used that to find their way. It was sort of a landmark for them. So they didn't bomb Salisbury for that reason, lest it be destroyed. Obviously, the British government twigged to this and they built an aircraft factory nearby because they knew it wouldn't be blown up. Anyway, so that is just a little bit about Old Sarum. This is the bridge you'd have to come over this very steep moat to get in. Okay, so that's enough from me. Thank you for viewing, and what else would I say? So please watch my videos, donate to me on PayPal, things like that. Toodaloo, everyone.